Hey, noble ones, speak quietly. This is Metatron coming to you in the middle of the night. In fact, I'm not even wearing my doublet. And you might be thinking, hey, Metatron, we didn't know that you owned any other item of clothing. But the reality is, yes, I do. But here's the thing. I was watching Moist Critical telling me all about crazy Florida man scammers when then, on the right, I noticed this. I'm like, I'm going to turn on the camera because we need to experience this one together. The secret, ladies and gentlemen, that's why we got to, let's be, wait, okay. All right, shh. That's a secret. The secret to perfect Mandarin tone pronunciation. So, even natives don't know. Now, here's the thing. I haven't watched it. There is no little red thing here. First time ever watching it with you. Maybe let's get the light back up so I can, yeah, okay. So my guess is that she's going to talk about the third tone. I think this is about the third tone. I might be wrong. You know how academically you're taught ma to go like down and then up, but the reality of fact is the majority of natives just go down. They don't even go up. Let's stop trying to guess. Stop being Metatron for once. I just turned off the headphones. It's going to be great.
Unfortunately, there's a reason why even if you work really hard on your tones, they're probably still not accurate. And
Let me try. Ma, 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 ma.
why is that? It all comes down to three things. Number one.
Oh, okay. We got the music first. Woohoo!
Hi, welcome back to Julie Two Shoes, a channel where we talk about language learning and diving into East Asian culture.
She seems great, by the way. Of course, I was joking at the beginning and not poking fun. She seems great.
Today, the topic we're going to tackle is why your tones when speaking Mandarin Chinese don't sound native-like, and how to fix them.
Please.
You may be wondering, who is this person and why should I listen to her? Well, a short introduction. My Chinese name is Siying, and I was born in Changchun, which is a city in northeastern China.
Yeah.
And I grew up speaking Mandarin Chinese with a very standard accent.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm a native Mandarin speaker, but that doesn't necessarily make me an expert on tones, right?
Well,
Completely right.
Right.
I agree.
Okay.
So that's why I went ahead and got my master's degree in Chinese linguistics and my PhD dissertation was on
a pro. Wow. What's next one? And then since I wanted to make sure that I have a full understanding of everything, I became an astronaut and actually spent 15 years on the moon. And then I'm going to be the first person to touch Mars once Elon Musk actually decides to open a colony and call it X. She's great.
Mandarin lexical tones. I'm not going to bore you with all the specifics of my PhD dissertation, so we're going to go right into the three main reasons why your tones don't sound native-like.
Please.
I'm going to assume you already have learned the basics of the tones. Ma, 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 ma.
Yeah.
Very straightforward.
Ma, ma,
or
ma,
so
ma.
you think. Unfortunately, there's a reason why even if you work really hard on your tones, they're probably still not accurate. And why is that? It all comes down to three things.
Okay.
Number one, tone charts are wrong. Two, tone sandy. And three, the fact that tones have their own phonological properties outside of their pitch contours.
Fantastic. I like this. This is like made for me. Love it. Let's get a little
So the
red
first
light.
reason why your tones are not accurate is because tone charts are wrong. So you probably studied tones like this, in a chart like this.
Yes.
Where 1 represents the lowest natural part of your voice,
Yeah.
and 5 represents the highest natural part of your voice. As someone who learned tones as a baby without looking at any charts, the first time I saw this chart, I was like, what the heck? This is totally inaccurate.
Probably Tiana.
I'm gonna go over all 4 tones one by one.
Okay, let's go. Let's go.
So the first tone, which they say is a high 5 the entire time, is incorrect. Tone 1 is not a high tone. If you just hear me speak the
maybe
Chinese
a
word for
4,
one,
a flat.
which is a tone 1, you'll understand. 1 in Chinese is E,
E,
1, 2, 3, 4, E.
Yeah.
So
1, 2, 3, 4.
E is actually quite in the middle of my natural vocal.
Yeah, she's right, because of course someone could be like, "Ee." That would be a 5.
Range. If I tried
She's
to
putting
do it
it on
like
3
a
then.
high 5, it would be like E. It just
Sure.
sounds so weird.
Sure.
I don't know what it is. I think it is some kind of conspiracy. I think the teachers and the textbooks are lying to you. That tone 1 is a high 5. It is not.
I don't know if they're lying, but I mean, I like a good controversy. Maybe it's the aliens. Totally the aliens.
When you try to make every word that's tone 1 a high 5, you sound really unnatural, and it's actually a lot of extra work for you to try to make it that high. Tone 1,
Between
a
3 and 4,
natural
maybe? Let's see.
mid to slightly
Mid,
higher
okay.
mid.
Between 3 to 4. I thought about it for a second, yeah. I mean, it makes sense. It's a good way to teach it. Sure. I mean, at the end of the day, I think students will try to mimic whatever the teacher says, which sometimes can be a problem because, in fact, my teacher, my Mandarin teacher at university, she was a lovely little lady from Beijing. And the funny thing is that she had the highest pitched voice you could ever imagine. So when she would do the first tone, it was actually pretty high compared to what I would do. And it was hilarious to see all of my students and fellow students, particularly the guys, trying to mimic the same pitch. And so she would be like, that was her voice, and we would try to go. So yeah, she would have been a better teacher.
Flat tone like E,
yeah, good.
like this.
Yeah, cool.
I would say tone 2 is relatively correct.
Yeah, it's a
Basically, it
rise.
starts slow and goes high from the bottom to the highest. So if I
Yeah.
just say some words in Chinese and you can just
Please.
hear it for yourself. Shen, he,
Shen, he, or even cha. 我喜欢喝茶.
she, twin, men.
Men, yeah, like the
Okay,
door.
tone 3, I have major
There we go.
beef with tone
I knew.
3.
She said it. Major beef. I knew it. I think she's gonna say that it only goes down and stays down. I have heard people refer to this as a low flat. So I want to see if she thinks it starts 2 and goes to 1 and stays there, or if she's gonna say it's a low flat. Let's see what she's gonna say. I think it's the first, but let's go.
The way it's depicted. You see it goes down and then it goes up to 4. That is definitely incorrect.
Right.
For most native speakers of Chinese, tone 3 is essentially just a low tone.
Yeah,
A low
there
tone
we go.
where you just kind of go down at the end. And in certain circumstances, it goes up, but not all the time. I'm going to tell you
Yeah.
more about when tone 3 goes up and when it doesn't in tone Sandy. But
Yeah.
just know for now, tone 3 does not go up.
You know how she said now that, and absolutely fantastic. She's great. It took me a few years actually to figure this one out. Interestingly enough, she did say now that there are situations in which it does go down and then up, and I think that that would be at the end of a sentence. So if you have a third tone at the end of a sentence, maybe you would have a situation when it goes up. Apart from that, very emphatic clauses, perhaps. But yeah, in the majority of situations, it is my experience as a Chinese learner, it's been a few years now, that yeah, she's absolutely right. It's not ma, but it's ma. And a good way for me to remember that, I'll see how she teaches it, but a good way for me to remember that is like start at a pretty low, but not the lowest, and then slightly go down from there. Ma, shui. That's how we do it, rather than shui, which is, yeah, Chinese people don't do that.
Higher than the way it starts. That's
Right.
totally incorrect. It's basically a low
Yeah,
tone.
it is.
Tone 4,
She's
I
right.
would say, is
Yeah, that
pretty
one is
correct.
good, yeah.
No major complaints there. It's a high falling tone like he, she.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, she said sure. But yeah, both. I mean, both. And what else? 太难. 不太难. 你是谁? Yeah.
So the number 2 reason why your tones probably don't sound accurate is because of tone sandy. So Chinese and like many other tonal languages have something called tone sandy. What it is when that 2 specific tones
They influence each other. Absolutely.
meet together, they actually have some kind of systematic tone change
Yeah.
that affects one or both of the tones.
Yeah, I mean, if you are a student of Chinese, you learned that one on the first month at university. So that one wasn't actually a problem for me. And I imagine that this would be, what she said about the third tone can be very, very much of a revelation, even for advanced student of Chinese. But this one, now, most students don't struggle with that unless you're a self-taught student or your teacher is horrible. But most teachers will tell you that. Like you have 2 third tones, the first one transforms into a second. That's what happens with ni hao. So on their own, ni hao. But ni hao is what happens. She's referring to that. I think most people know that. It's good perhaps to explain what happens if you have 3 third tones, one after the other, like situations like that. Yeah.
In Chinese, the tone that changes most frequently is tone 3.
Indeed.
So I'm going to tell you a bit more about
Sometimes even
that.
one becomes
tone
2.
3 is really problematic, so just stay tuned and hear the whole story.
Yeah.
So what happens, the first part of this rule is when a tone 3 and a tone 3 meet,
Yeah.
the first tone
Becomes
3
2.
turns into a tone 2.
Correct, yeah.
I'll just put these two words separately and then I'll put them together and you can see the difference. You have the word hen and the word hao. So you have hen, which means very, and hao, which means good. When they're separate, they're both tone 3. If you put them together, the first tone 3 turns into tone 2. So hen becomes hen, and then you have hao, which stays the same. However, and this is something that Chinese linguists have learned through research, and I've also seen it in my research, when you have two tone 3s together, the first tone 3 that turns into tone 2 is not a full tone 2. It's actually a half of a tone 2.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So if you just hear me say it quickly, hen hao, hen hao,
Yeah.
hen hao. You can hear that it's not a full tone 2.
True.
A full tone 2 would be hen,
This is good.
but here we have hen hao. It kind of cuts off
Yeah.
at the middle.
Yeah, she's absolutely right. Ni hao. I mean, I guess ni hao. I guess I was doing it subconsciously, but she absolutely is right in pointing it out. Because at the end of the day, if it's in isolation, cha, or at the end of a word, like I was saying earlier on, 我喝茶, is very like extended. She's correct.
Of the going rising, and it goes back down to hao. So the second part of the tone 3 tone sandy rule is that, to be honest with you, tone 3 is hardly ever a full tone 3.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a ghost, honestly.
Yeah.
Tone 3 is only a full tone 3, which means it goes down and then up, when it's at the end of a phrase or a sentence.
Yep.
In any other position, it is a half tone 3, which means it only goes down. It doesn't go
Splendid.
up.
This is good.
So I'll give you another example. You have the word hen
Yeah.
and bang. That means very good.
很棒.
So
Yeah,
if you
很棒,
put these
很
two
棒.
together, the first
很
hen
棒.
turns into a half of a tone 3. So
Right.
instead of hen bang,
Well, of course.
native speakers will say hen bang, hen bang.
Yeah.
And the last part of tone
bang.
sandy are basically revolved around two specific words, yi and bu.
Yeah.
If you had a good Chinese teacher, you probably learned this.
That's
but
right. It's very important. Like it's true that 不 is a fourth tone, but it turns into in a second 不是. You wouldn't say 不是.
I just wanted to give you a
不是.
refresher anyway. E, which means 1 in Chinese, it is tone 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. E.
Yeah.
It's always tone 1, E, except in front of tone 4. So let's say you have the word E and then ge, which is a very common one of an item. E and then ge in front of tone 4, it turns into tone 2. So when you
很有意思.
say it together, you say 一个, not 一个.
Yeah.
Okay? Let's say you have 一 and then you have 扇门, which means a door. 扇 is the
Counter,
measure
yeah.
word for door.
Yeah.
So if you have 一 and then 扇门, you actually have 一扇门.
一扇门.
一扇门. That is the
一扇门.
correct way to say it in this context.
一扇门.
The second part of this rule is the word 不, which means not.
I feel like we're
or
learning
no.
a lot. It's good.
不 is usually tone 4, like 不好,不喜欢. But when it's in front of another tone 4, it gets very shy and it turns into tone 2.
Yeah.
So let's say you have the word 不 and then 是. You probably heard this one. It's very common.
不是.
It turns into 不是.
It's true. First year students do tend to forget this and say 不是, which is wrong. It's 不是. It also flows better, doesn't it? Which I think it's at the nature and basis of all of these shifts. At the end of the day, we don't know if in archaic Chinese, perhaps, the double 4 was a thing. But eventually, I think it just evolved out of just prosody. Intonation just sounds better. 不是. 不是. Yeah.
Not 不是,不是. Let's say you have the word 不 in front of the word 像, which means not like. You actually have 不像. 不像.
像. Nice. Phonological properties.
And then the third reason why your
subscribe.
tones probably don't sound accurate is because tones have phonological properties outside of pitch contours. You
Her English is spectacular, by the way. Very professional sounding.
probably heard from Chinese teachers and other people who've learned Chinese that Chinese is relatively easy in terms of phonology because there's no stress and every syllable is the exact same kind of like stress and things like that. But that's actually not true. Why is that not true? To explain this, I need to explain what kind of tones Mandarin have. So the tones that Mandarin have are something called contour tones. And contour tones just means that the tone changes height throughout the kind of process of the tone. So whether it falls or it goes up, that makes it a contour tone. Mandarin Chinese have 3 contour tones, 2, 3, and 4. And tone 1 is what we call a registered tone, which means it's a flat tone. If you gave native Mandarin speakers kind of the vocal recordings of people speaking certain tones, but you get rid of the actual pitch contour, basically like in music, strip out the notes, what you have left is duration, basically how long the sound is, and 2, the intensity, like the volume of the sound.
Well, this is fantastic. I don't want to watch the whole thing as to encourage you to go check it out and finish it. She did a fantastic job, I have to say. The secret to perfect Mandarin tone pronunciation might not be a secret, but she absolutely is worth a like, a subscribe, and only 1,000 subscribers. This is incredible. Why does she only have 1,000 subscribers? Let's see if she's still active as a channel. So 2 days ago, absolutely. All right, so number one, let's go subscribe en masse because she is great. And honestly, I can be a little pedantic when it comes to these things. She only started 2 months ago. She seems to be doing that's probably why, because it's excellent. She's a pro. She explains very well. And I think if you are studying Mandarin Chinese or you were thinking about studying Hanyu or Zhongwen, you should absolutely subscribe. 谢谢老师。我很喜欢你的频道. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this. It was a little evening adventure with you. Let's remove the light again. There we go. So now it's, whoa, I'm going to go back to watching Critical. Perhaps I'll play a little Civilization tonight. Why not in Chinese? You know you can swap that. I might do that live one of these days. Thanks. 再见.